Hey, Intuitive Soul Tribe. Melissa, Intuitive Soul Coach here, excited to bring to you today's collective reading where we take a deep dive into the shadow self. We'll take a look at what is the shadow, how can you recognize the shadow within yourself and others, how the shadow comes about and how to do shadow work, why it's even important, and lastly, how the shadow can help or hinder your soul's journey. So welcome back to my channel if you are returning, and welcome if you are new. If you are interested in a personal reading or entering into the free monthly reading giveaway, you can find both of those links in the description box below. All right, beautiful souls, we are going to dive into shadow work. We'll also pull cards from the tarot, and we will only be reading the shadow side or the negative side of whatever card shows up. Now, this may pertain to you. It could pertain to someone around you, or if at the very least, it can bring you knowledge and awareness of what to look for within your own self or others. So if you do like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for spending your time with me. All right, so we're going to dive in the shadow work here. What is the shadow self? Well, the shadow self is parts of oneself, whether it's patterns, habits, thoughts, emotions, personality traits that are difficult for one to accept, identify, or embrace. This can show up in the form of arrogance, self-indulgence, narcissism, paranoia, obsessiveness, secretiveness. It can bring about energies of unreliability, impulsivity, possessiveness, and jealousy. It can also tend to be overcritical, resentful, vengeful, racist, homophobic. It can bring about a detached type of personality, aloof, uncaring, sadistic, corrupt, weak, or timid. Now, those are just some of the characteristics that are aligned with the shadow. And I want to let you know, each and every one of us has a shadow. It is inevitable. We all have these characteristics. However, we are not born with them. We are born whole and complete, right? And when we navigate and journey through life that we tend to add on these layers due to social conditioning, the way that we are brought up in our family environments. It is how we view the self. It is something that it goes hand in hand, literally, when we're looking at both of our hands. And if you are fortunate enough to have both of your hands, imagine what it would be like to only have one. Imagine your right hand being that light aspect, right? Or the dominant hand. If you are right-handed, imagine that being your light self. If you are left-handed, imagine that hand being your light self or the positive traits of oneself. Now, imagine trying to do something one-handed. You wouldn't be very good at it, right? We need both hands for a lot of daily tasks or activities, right? So imagine your non-dominant hand being the shadow, and that shadow is just as important as the light. Okay, so we have what is called the automatic defense mechanism, where we try to avoid, we try to hide or repress all of those shadows, negative traits, emotions, or characteristics. Now, the worst thing that we can do when it comes to the shadow self is lack awareness. You find that show up in narcissism. You see it show up in depression, addictions, psychosis, things of that nature. When we suppress that shadow so much, what we do is we tend to add layer upon layer upon layer of more of those negative or shadow or darker characteristics onto the mix, and it can be very difficult. And worst case scenario, it can manifest as one of those personalities that I just mentioned: narcissism, depression, addiction, things of that nature. And it's important for us to become aware of why these things are happening. Now, of course, please seek medical professional guidance if need be. Please check out the disclaimer in the description box below. But on an energetic level, on a spiritual level, this is what is happening. Now, it's important for you to recognize that the shadow does not define you. It is a part of our existence here on earth. And once we learn to accept our shadow, the shadows will stop having control over our lives. So you may be asking, how do we accept our shadow selves? How do we even begin to do shadow work, which can be that inner healing from post-traumatic stress? It can be going to therapy to dig in. It can be about releasing and figuring out how to overcome the ego self, right? It can be about taking accountability for addictions. It can be taking a look at buried, repressed emotions as well as trauma. So when we realize that these shadows do not define us, but they are a part of us, we can really start to accept the good and the bad. And it's that acceptance that is the key. When we fully have acceptance over a situation, we're able to move forward with more love, more compassion, more kindness. We're able to take a look at it from a whole perspective, and you start to remember that you, in fact, beautiful souls, are whole yourself. So take a scenario that's happened in your life. Perhaps there was something that you didn't want to see. Maybe you didn't want to see that your place of employment was very toxic, even though it was there. You knew it was happening, but you needed to do what you needed to do. So maybe you turned a blind eye to what was going on. Same goes for relationships. Sometimes we know something is off in a relationship, but we don't want to believe it because we don't want our family to fall apart, right? We don't want to know that a spouse is cheating on us. So therefore we turn a blind eye and pretend everything is okay. And that doesn't do anything for yourself, the heart chakra. It doesn't do any good for the other person or the family or people that are involved. But it's when we can come to terms that this is happening that we can really shift that energy and transform it, whether it is that scenario of a cheating spouse that you know something is off, but you just want to keep the peace. You don't want to stir anything up because it feels comfortable in your comfort zone, right? You want to stay together maybe for the children, or maybe you have a belief within yourself that relationships or marriage is forever, and whatever is going on within the self here, you may be repressing or turning a blind eye to. But when you have acceptance of what is actually happening, when you look at that scenario and you say, my spouse is cheating, or this isn't how I would like my relationship to turn out, when there's that acceptance, you're able to shift the energy by having a conversation, by connecting, by talking, or making decisions or choices to get you out of that energy. But first, you have to be aware of what's happening. We have to show ourselves love, compassion, and kindness. Now, Carl Jung actually coined the term golden shadow because a lot of times what people don't realize, and this is a wonderful thing to make note of, beautiful souls, is the golden shadow is actually the gem that we can find within our shadows. So that can be artistic gifts. It can be finding our courage to leave a difficult situation and move on and be truly loved and desired the way we want to be, right? It can bring us confidence to leave that job that is toxic, or to leave a situation where our boss keeps adding more things to our plate without giving us the raise, but we lie to ourselves and say, well, we're going to get that raise, or this person really appreciates me, that's why they want me to do all of these things, right? When we have this acceptance of things aren't always as they seem, they're as we want them to seem, right? We have our own personal truth, and then there's the collective truth. We can actually find a gem in those shadows. Again, it can be courage, artistic gifts, confidence, strength, and we can even find empathy within those shadows. So very powerful energies here. Now, as you are aware, if you've watched my prior videos, especially the Saturday collectives, I go into a deep meditation with spirit. Typically it lasts almost 30 minutes to 50 minutes or so during these collective readings, where a lot of information comes through. And during this meditation, I was really getting this strong emphasis on the shadow self, because what's happening is the collective is finally coming face to face. And you see that in this card here, where we are bringing a lot of those shadows to the light. And we're seeing a lot of things happen around the world, or even within your own personal world, that seems corrupt. It seems off kilter. It seems imbalanced. But the only way, beautiful souls, to bring in balance with, remember, the left and right hand here, because we live in a dualistic reality. That's why the shadow exists, because again, we have these imbalances. We come in whole, but as we navigate, we're told what is good and what is evil, right? We're told what is right and what is wrong. And we start to label these things, and we start to tell ourselves that's bad or that's good, or that person will not approve or this person will, right? So we tend to separate ourselves from that sense of wholeness. So I do feel that what we're seeing around the world, what we're seeing on a global level, is to rebuild the foundation that is built on more of this wholesome energy versus separation and duality. And it's able to bring more love and compassion and kindness, not just to the world around us, but to ourselves. And it really starts with the self. It is amazing to do the spiritual work. It is amazing to keep the vibrations high and to do things that enlighten us and bring us happiness and joy. But if you are dealing with the shadow that is becoming more and more prominent in your life, or you are dealing with someone around you who really is honing in and feeding that shadow, then it's important for you to know what you can do for your own self, maybe to lead someone else towards their light as well. Hence, many of you are light workers, right? Many of you are star seeds, or you are connecting to the spiritual quest, the spiritual path to bring about more truth. And sometimes we don't want to see the shadow. We don't want to see the dark or the evil, or we turn a blind eye to it. That's not how we shift vibrations. That's not how we can shift the energy of the planet. We must look at these shadows and accept them and know that it's not because, you are flawed or you are broken or you are, evil. These things are just labels that we put on. But when we embrace them as a whole, and we can actually, instead of labeling the shadow self as what it is here, the shadow, when we start to see that shadow as our greatest teacher, that is really when our soul has these awakenings. All right, so let's dive in. We're going to pull some cards here. Again, these may pertain to you specifically or someone in your world, but again, we are only going to read the reversals of each, and we're going to talk about how you can bring that shadow to light. So please, again, take these as it resonates for you. All right, what do we have here? For all of you beautiful souls who may feel like you are struggling with the shadow. And it's very important, as I mentioned, to remember that you are whole. And when we deny that darkness, it doesn't actually get rid of it. It only creates chaos and disharmony. And so that's why sometimes we don't realize that triggers show up 50 years later, or we create dis-ease, which can manifest into disease in the body, which can take the form of an actual physical illness, an addiction, anything of that nature, because we've suppressed and held those emotions back, or those personality traits. It's loving all of you, all of the parts, because that is part of your human experience here on earth. So let's take a look at a few of the cards we have here. Oh goodness, I knew this one was going to come up here. The Six of Swords. The Six of Swords literally is about leaving behind a difficult situation, because you are going through a spiritual transition, a spiritual journey to something better. This is about freeing yourself from that shadow. It is about bringing that shadow to light. So when we see the Six of Swords, this can be about feeling stuck or not even being able to see the dangers ahead. Now, some of you may be saying, well, Melissa, I'm not able to read people. I'm not able to tune into their energies. I wouldn't know it if it smacked me right in the head, right? So sometimes we don't always see the danger that comes. And I say there's two reasons for this. One, that you may be completely distracted by what's going on out there or even in here, right? There's a distraction, something that is disconnecting us from our built-in navigational system and our built-in, fight or flight. That ego piece that's important. Sometimes we think of ego as just being bad, but we can have a healthy ego, but we also have that fight or flight, which is important. It helps us from walking out into traffic. It helps us from driving 300 miles per hour on the highway, right? So we have these built-in things that can help us. However, when we find ourselves stuck in these situations, in these patterns, it's important for us to see them for what they are. So if you find yourself in a repetitive pattern, or if you feel stuck or you're not able to see beyond, this is where you may want to take a little bit of a step back and say, what are my anchors? You can see here with the Six of Swords that there's a ship in a choppy storm, right? It's in a choppy storm. And sometimes that storm comes from external situations. Of course, it could be family members that really stir us up, that shake us up in our emotions. It can be people projecting their pain onto us, which can leave an imprint. But when you take a look at what that person is even saying is affecting you, because what's happening is there's incoming energy. It is showing up within you here, which you are the ship. And if you can take a look and see where that anchor is holding you in place. So maybe that anchor was your mother or father telling you you weren't good enough. And you hear your friend telling you you can't do that, right? Or you're not good enough. It actually stems from this anchor of childhood, of your family telling you you couldn't do it or you weren't good enough. So when you can start to become aware of where these shadows come up for you, and that can be that your shadow may stem from that situation where it could leave you feeling detached. It can leave you feeling broken or overcritical or even resentful of that person who had made a comment or even of your family. But when you can take a look at it and say, that was an experience that happened, because remember, beautiful ones, we choose our soul tribe. We choose our family and we choose our experiences that we would like to have. Like a blueprint prior to coming to earth, we have our soul chart of things that we want to learn, grow from, and experience here on earth. So when we see it from that capacity, from that angle, when we're able to see what is anchoring us, what is really triggering us, why we feel disconnected, why we feel like we are carrying some of those traits. For others of you, this could be staying in a situation where a spouse is cheating, right? And then we can become paranoid, we can become obsessive, or we can become, we can look a blind eye the other way, but it can bring up a lot of those feelings, a lot of those characteristics that we mentioned. And it's up to you to do that shadow work, to free yourself, because that feels really heavy and it does feel really sticky. And when we can accept that an experience happened to us, or excuse me, for us, for our growth, for our evolution, then we can get out of that victim mentality and we can shift the way that we express ourselves into others. Because remember, when we heal, the world heals. When we shift our vibration, it shifts the vibration of the planet. So it really does start with you. So the flip side here, or the shadow side of the Six of Swords, is staying stuck in a situation that is less than desirable. Instead, face the shadow, because you're going to find a golden gem that you weren't even searching for, or you didn't even realize was there. And you leaving that situation that may have been uncomfortable or sticky, but you first must accept that it exists. And then you're able to move on, instead of putting on a facade, putting on a fake smile, wearing a mask and pretending like everything's okay. Isn't that positive side of spiritual work, because deep down the soul is not aligned with what's happening externally. There is a disconnect there. There's a misalignment, and you're going to see that not everything is all, as it appears. And we don't manifest as quickly as we would like. We don't manifest those happy, positive things that we want to see if we were to put in the work. So Six of Swords showing up here. Now, next we have Justice. This is really powerful, and it's quite synchronistic that this is showing up as well, because the justice card, the flip side, the shadow side, is all about injustice. It is about imbalance. It's about saying life is not fair, right? And yes, that can be true. Life at times, it doesn't seem fair. It doesn't feel like we are we're being looked at in a whole way. And that's because of so many people neglecting and denying the shadow side, which can bring in, like I mentioned earlier, people being corrupt, people being racist, homophobic, vengeful, and detached. And that creates the imbalance that we see, not just in maybe our justice systems, our governing agencies. We're seeing it in, careers, in the job force. We're seeing it within our personal lives. So when this comes together, when we're able to realize that here's the shadow, here is, the human persona, here's what we would like to present, and we would like to see ourselves in this literally light manner, right? We're able to balance the both of those shadows, because sometimes we fail to see that we, again, are whole. And I'll keep saying that because it's important for you to know, beautiful souls, that you are whole. So when we bring that gap together, we're able to bridge that. We're able to align our soul, our truth, with what's going on externally. And that's going to create the balance. Now, it can also bring about a sense of karma. Justice is karma. What you put out there, you're going to receive in return. So even though some of us may turn a blind eye to some of the shadows that we have, some of those patterns, thoughts, habits, it doesn't mean that your life is going to be completely miserable and you're never going to amount to manifesting what you want. But I can tell you it will be a challenge, and it will be more difficult to manifest those things. And it would be simpler. It would be more simplistic. It would be more beneficial and more healthy, body, mind, and soul, if we were to accept both of them for what they are, bridge the gap, come together, know that we're whole, know that it's part of the experience, and how can we love ourselves unconditionally through those things? Because again, you may see this show up in family members as well. Family members, I've heard many of you say, I have a narcissistic father, I have an alcoholic mother, I have this boyfriend who's cheated and who's lied, and who's, or girlfriend who's resentful and jealous and paranoid. So all of these things we see every day. And again, we each have these characteristics within us that can lie dormant, but when an experience comes in, we can definitely let that shadow side out, right? It's which wolf do you feed, right? Basically. And so the justice card is about bringing that back into balance through acceptance, through compassion, through self-love and kindness. What else do we have here? The 10 of Pentacles. This is what we all strive for. At least the majority of us strive for the 10 of Earth. Now, the 10 of Pentacles in the upright position is all about stability. It can be financial security, it's abundance, it's leaving a legacy behind, it's long-term goals. But when we do not face the shadow, or when we let that shadow control, dominate our lives, we have such a harder time reaching the 10 of Pentacles or 10 of Earth in the upright. The shadow side of the 10 of Pentacles is family drama. It is going into debt, right? Sometimes we completely ignore our relationship with money. We may not even take a look at, credit cards, or the accumulation of debt, or, family trauma, generational wounding, things of that nature. And it's so much easier, and you see this in sometimes the health profession, just to slap a label on things. Here's the cure, right? But it really doesn't get to the root of the situation. So when the 10 of Pentacles shows up, you are worthy of this. All of you, each and every one of you, can achieve this 10 of Pentacles status here on earth. You can create your heaven on earth, but we must take a look and go within. What are those things that are dominating? What are those things that are showing up? How can we deal with other people's shadows as well? We can accept people for who they are, but it doesn't mean we have to put up with their behavior. We can love from a distance. And that's a question I hear so often Well, Melissa, what if this person is my mom, or what if they're my dad, or even my own child? Remember, beautiful souls, we choose the relationships that we have. We choose our soul tribe, and we choose these experiences to grow and to evolve. But you have free will to choose if you've had enough of, the shadows of another person, and you can choose to love from a distance, or you can choose to stay with someone or stay in that energy to teach, to heal, to learn, to evolve together. The choice is yours. There is no judgment here. Whatever you decide is based on what you feel is in your highest good. All right, let's get a couple more cards here. I hope this is making sense for you. Again, if so, feel free to comment. Let me know your experiences. Let me know what your shadows are. That would be really beneficial for all of you to connect and know that you're not alone. If you have a jealous tendency, if you feel vengeful, if you have, obsessiveness, if there is this tendency to people please, put that in the comment box below so other people know that they're not alone as well. And when we can reunite, when we can come together, when we can accept that, yes, these things are happening, these things are taking place, but that doesn't have to define you. You don't have to feed into that aspect. You just have to accept that that's part of the human experience because of some things that you've went through here on earth. All right, last 3 cards, and then we'll pull a few cards from the Soul Truth. And that's where I recommend you get out a pencil and pad or a piece of paper and really jot down the Soul Truth questions. Now, we have here the Ace of Fire. Ace of Fire is the Ace of Wands. It's one of my favorites. And in the upright position, it's all about chasing your dreams. It's all about the desire and the passion and the inspiration. It's about setting goals and being creative. It's all about feeling like you have a new sense of purpose, feeling optimistic. So imagine the flip side of all of those things we just mentioned. Creative blocks, feeling burnt out, feeling low on energy, feeling like you're just out of time, right? That can stem from all of those characteristic traits, the shadow traits, right? When we're not feeling in our power, when we're not feeling at our best, or we feel separated, segregated, denied, then we are not able to live that fullest potential. We're not able to live a life of inspiration and creativity and optimism, because there's always something that shows back up, right? There's always a trigger, or always that voice within saying you cannot do this, you're not good enough. So Ace of Fire here, you can use that fire to destroy, or you can use it to burn with passion, with desire for the things that really light you up, beautiful souls. All right, we have now the Ace of Pentacles, and this is interesting because you have double aces here. So when it comes to manifesting here on earth, here in the physical world, that's what this Ace of Pentacles is all about. And it's also about tapping into the unlimited potential within. You can tap into that unlimited potential even more so by taking a look at that shadow. Remember, Carl Jung coined the term golden shadow. It's that gem that you find within the shadow. You may find courage that you didn't even know existed. You may find an artistic gift or spiritual gift that you didn't even know existed. This is about you redefining what confidence and strength and empathy look like for you. So the Ace of Pentacles, it's all about new beginnings and good news and being positive in your health and all of those wonderful things. But the flip side of the Ace of Pentacles is all about loss, physical concerns, missed opportunities, and those things tend to pile up when we are living in the shadow. So sometimes if we're wondering, why aren't we having a new beginning? What is happening here? What's really going on? Instead of accumulating more and more of that fear, more and more of that obsession, more and more of that impulsivity or possessiveness, right? This is my home. This is my couch or my furniture, whatever it may be, right? These are my shoes. You cannot wear them. Instead of attaching ourselves, detachment is key. Yes, it's important to realize we're whole and that shadow self exists. But again, detachment means that we don't have to we don't have to let that define us. And when we detach from that defining energy, right, we don't have to live a life that we just wonder about what our potential is. We can actually live it, and we can manifest those things here on earth. We can create that heaven on earth. Now, last but not least here, we have the Ten of Swords. And this card can be one of the most challenging in tarot, because the Ten of Swords in the upright and in the shadow, it can be very challenging because it portrays endings. And so many people fear the ending. Let's go back to that cheating spouse scenario. You may look a blind eye, or you may not want to make a move. You want to keep the peace. You don't want that tower to come in. So we tend to avoid it. And then it's inevitable where that tower is going to come crashing down at some point. It's inevitable. So you might as well get it done and over with by accepting, by facing it, instead of living in denial, not living in truth, in happiness, in abundance for however long, until a tower comes in and shakes it all up. It's better just to deal with it, take a look at it, heal it now, work through it now, so you can finally get to live in your life in the best way possible. So when this Ten of Swords shows up, the Ten of Swords is about a painful ending. It is about being stabbed in the back, okay? It is about us avoiding recovery. It can be about us being in denial. That is the shadow self as well, or the shadow side. But all in all, it is the card of coming to one's truth, knowing that something can no longer go on the way that it was, right? This literally is the card, I would say here, even so, of the shadow, along with maybe even the moon. Even the strength card as well, because we can get lost in this repetitive story of not wanting something to end, because sometimes it can feed a person's ego. Sometimes someone's arrogance or narcissistic trait, it feels like we're feeding. Like I said, there's that old saying of which wolf do you feed? Whichever one you feed is the one that's going to grow. And that's why you see people living in that narcissism personality, or extreme arrogance, or we see sadistic rituals or corrupt advice, like I had mentioned earlier, and that is all coming to an end, not just for you, beautiful souls, especially if you're watching this. If you are still here, I feel like a lot of you are really coming to light. There's some sort of truth within your world that is you're freeing yourself from, or there's an acceptance. And when you have that acceptance, you're going to see that the energy shifts within you, and you're going to see a huge domino effect of things taking place in your world that are going to lead to bigger and better things. So really, really powerful here. Now, last but not least, let's get a few messages from the Soul Truth deck and see what questions you can ask yourself, your soul, to really get you back into alignment with your truth. And sometimes these are difficult. Sometimes it's important just to meditate with them, to sit with them, to see how they feel for you. And be completely honest, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And it's interesting because your first card here is, am I ready to let go of this buried shame? Shame is also another characteristic or trait or emotion that we tend to build. That can be part of that shadow. And shame and resentment is actually one of the lowest frequencies that we can have as, a human, or as a soul having this human experience. Shame is really, really heavy, and it can weigh down on us. So remember earlier with the Six of Swords, we talked about those anchors. Some of us have a really difficult time pulling up that anchor when we have some sort of shame, especially when it comes to violence, domestic violence, or sexual assault. Things of that nature can really weigh heavy on us. Also, some of you may struggle with parenting as well. There could be some shame in the way that you were raised, or in the way that you've raised even your own children. I'm also getting here for some of you, there is some buried and suppressed emotions for actions that you've done, actions where you felt that you've overreacted, maybe that you've taken or done under the influence of alcohol, of drugs, of pain, right? But know and trust that you are having a human experience. This is part of that experience. Cut yourself some slack. Be kind to yourself. Love yourself through all of those things, all of those challenges, all of those difficulties, all of the things that you feel you've done right or wrong. Accept, embrace, and love yourself. Now the message here, the feeling of shame is the lowest energy frequency there is. When you live in shame, you live in darkness. What part of you is ready to stand in the light? Whew, I just got goosebumps because this literally is what this whole reading is about. What part of you is ready to stand in the light? Is there any shame from a past experience that is ready to be healed? Heal the shame by giving it a name. Bring it to the light and let it be seen, heard, and healed. It's revival season. Replace the shame with your soul's truth. Fill in the blank. My soul's truth is blank. Oh, drop that in the comment box below. What is your soul's truth? My soul's truth is I am whole. I am loved. I am worthy. I am a soul having a human experience. Whatever your soul's truth is, drop that in the comment box. I would love to hear it. And I know that others would love to hear it as well. What is your soul's truth? What is your shadow? What are you bringing to light? Bring that to light right here, right now in the comment box below. All right, what excuses am I making right now? And I will at the very end, I will indulge a piece of my shadow as well. So stay tuned to the end. We'll get into that juicy goodness I'm sure you all would love to hear. Okay, we have here, what excuses am I making right now? No more waiting. There will never be a good enough time. The time is now. Yes, it's time for you to start living in your truth. Take a look at that shadow. Own the shadow. Bring it to the light, beautiful ones. If it's important enough to you, you will find a way. Today, make a decision and do it, even if you don't feel ready. Listen to your heart and you will be led. Absolutely. Remember, you don't have to go through this life alone. You are not alone. You've never been alone. Some of you may be cursing me in the comments saying, Melissa, I've always been alone, right? But really and truly, you always have some sort of spiritual help, spiritual guidance from the moment that you first made your presence here on earth. So know that you're not alone, even though it may have felt like you've walked the dark night of the soul, or you've had to become alone, or you've been alone your whole life. Maybe you've suffered abandonment or rejection, denial. This is about you knowing that you are whole, you are loved, and you are not alone. So no more excuses, beautiful souls. Time to own that up. Time to take accountability and responsibility for your healing. Next, we have expectations. That can be the life of people sometimes. What expectations do I have that are impossible to meet? The expectations we have are mostly delusional and impossible to meet. We then experience disappointment with ourselves or with a relationship when they are not met. It's time to dissolve those expectations and replace them with gratitude. Now, some of you want to know, if we haven't already talked about the acceptance piece and the self-love, I'll do another collective video on self-love as well. But that can be, self-love can be doing the shadow work. It can be about surrendering, right? It can be about practicing more gratitude as well, because when we live in gratitude, when we are thankful for the things that we have, we open the door to allowing more things into our energy field. So for today's soul action, be grateful. You are being summoned to more peace. Peace is home for our soul, and it is accompanied by trust. It comes when you surrender and focus only on what you can control. If you expect nothing and are grateful for everything, you will experience extreme fulfillment. Yeah, be grateful for the good, the bad, the ugly. Be grateful for your shadow. Say it in your mind's eye or out loud right now. I am grateful for my shadow because it is my biggest teacher. What else do we have here? We have, am I willing? You are on the edge of something great, beautiful souls. Can you feel it? Yes, there is risk. There is uncertainty and imperfections ahead. Failure can be certain and vulnerability is a requirement. You must be brave and trust yourself more than ever before. You will reach the dream, but you must stretch yourself into a whole new level of belief and willingness in order to move forward with courage. everything we've been talking about here. Are you willing to look that shadow in the eye and bring it to the light? Today's soul action: be brave, follow your heart's compass, and lift the lid on your own dreams. Today's mantra: it is possible. Yes, it is. It's possible. I love it. The word, and I say this often, the word impossible itself spells I'm possible. So know that you are possible to manifest and create whatever it is that you want and want to achieve, what goals, milestones, and the kind of life that you would like to create. Make sure it's aligned with what you truly seek and desire. Two more here. Some of you are struggling when it comes to career, finances, money, wealth, right? And that can be that 10 of Pentacles energy as well. What do I believe about money? Do my beliefs match my dreams? How does your relationship with money affect your current situation? Do you believe you are worthy? Do you believe you are capable? Do you trust money, and does money trust you? Money is an energy and it ebbs and flows. You are worthy of it, and it is your responsibility to heal your relationship with money as part of your waking up to the whole of you and your purpose. Today's soul action: take a deep dive into your belief system around money. And this can show up as, a shadow as well. We see it happen all the time. When people come into large sums of money, we can see greed, and we can see possessiveness, and we can see control, or energies of feeling corrupt, right? Because people are feeding that shadow, or because, there is a separation, a feeling like there is not enough. You have to remember that it's an energy, and energy cannot be, thrown away. It can be transmuted, but it cannot die. Take a deep dive into your belief system around money. Are there any beliefs that you need to upgrade to create the results you are wanting most in your life? Write out your money story. Is it time for a sacred shift? What will your next chapter be? Fill in the blank. I am grateful to money because blank. There's another comment prompt below. What are you grateful for? Fill in the blank. I'm grateful for money because blank. This is really powerful here. I'd love for you to do these exercises. Whether you feel comfortable putting it in the comment box, awesome. If not, just say it in your mind's eye or jot it down on a piece of paper. And then last but not least, on whom am I placing blame right now? A person who blames others has not begun their lesson, hence the narcissist, hence the person with addictions, hence the person that is racist, homophobic, or living in those lower vibrations of the shadow, right? Let's use that as our teacher. A person who blames themselves has begun their lesson, and a person who blames no one has finished their lesson. Today's soul action: take responsibility. On whom are you placing blame right now? Today, free yourself by releasing all victimhood, blame, and resistance. They don't belong where you are going, right? You have this 10 of Swords. There's an ending coming in. They don't belong. Release those anchors. Pick up the anchor here and set yourself free with the 6 of Swords. Make a choice to do it, even if you don't feel ready. Listen to your heart and you will be led. Yes, I love this being the final card here, because this is really powerful here. And so many times I get asked the question, well, what is shadow work? How do we do it? How do we bring it to light? How can we use it to be our greatest teacher? So hopefully this gave you some insight into what the shadow self is, what shadow work is, how we can work on it more. If you do have additional questions, feel free to drop them in the comment box below. I'll try to answer what I can. Now for the ending, I'm sure all of you want to know, we have many different shadows, but one of mine stems from a childhood that was quite chaotic. Never quite knew what the circumstances were going to be. When I would have, a place to live, a family, food, a vehicle, when I go to school, there was just so much chaos that the shadow piece stemmed into my adult life as control in a perfectionist tendency, where you may have even noticed even the cards that I put out, I like them to be looking good because I feel like I can control that more so because of situations that I was not in control of in my own childhood, right? When things are very, very chaotic when we are younger, and we have no control over those things, it tends to stem as an adult as control, whether it's controlling the way things look around you, controlling what you can within your environment. But how I have come to embrace my shadow, it doesn't mean that I'm no longer a perfectionist and I'm a slob, because I'm really quite organized and neat. But it means that I don't cry over spilt milk, basically. It means that I've had a lot of work to do as an adult to not let every little thing that was out of my control get the best of me. So when I realized the why, the anchor, which was childhood distress, childhood lack of control, things being chaotic around me at every given moment, I've learned to embrace my shadow, and I've learned to take the golden shadow of, at least I feel organized, right? At least I have this talent and this gift of organization and making things and spaces look pretty, but I can also release the need to, again, like I said, cry over spilt milk. So if something happens, I don't immediately feel the need to react because it's outside of my control. So there is just one example of an anchor that was built in childhood that can stem into your adult life, what it may look like, and how you can embrace it and use it for the good. So I've acknowledged what's happened in childhood. I've acknowledged that I have these tendencies, but I've also embraced the good and the bad, and it lets me lead with more balance in my world. So I hope that makes sense. I hope this reading resonates. A lot of information here. If you like this, again, please feel free to hit that thumbs up and be vulnerable. Let me know in the comments. Let others know in the comments. Remember, we all have shadows, each and every single one of us. It is part of the human experience. Remember, we live in a dualistic world where there is right and wrong, left and right, good and bad. So we need to embrace these things. We need to, instead of flipping a blind eye and not pretending that they don't exist, we need to bring that together to find this whole, because we are whole. And that's the only way that we are going to be able to shift the energy of the planet, shift what's going on around us. That's why we're seeing things crumbling, things tumbling, things, feeling like they're controlled or breaking down. It's because the old way is no longer working. The old way of ignoring the truth is no longer working. And that pertains to each and every one of us as well. We need to bridge that gap and come together to create the bigger piece. Thank you so much for being here, beautiful souls. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I wouldn't be here without you. I have so much gratitude for all of you. Sending you, each and every one, lots of love and light.